My daughter-in-law stood in the hallway with a tape measure and said, "Pack your things. The buyers want a fast close." 2 days later at the title office, the woman behind the glass asked, "Where's the trustee's consent?" I slid her a paper that said, "Camellia Trust" across the top, and watched the sale go quiet. In Sonoma, mornings behave like people who know how to enter a room. Soft light, a decent greeting, something warm in their hands. I am Florence Kim, though. Anyone who has ever accepted a second bowl of soup at my table calls me Flo. I am 78 years old, with a spine that negotiates and knees that file grievances. I have lived long enough to know the difference between pretty and kind, between a fresh coat of paint and an apology. My husband, Daniel, used to say our bungalow was held together by hope and camellias. The camellia bush beside the porch is older than my son, and it remembers more than he does. We planted it when the mortgage felt like a dare we'd taken from life and were too proud to give back. When times were tight, I cut blooms for church and told myself we were rich in the ways that matter, flowers and people who would miss us. My son Ethan married Madison, a woman who could make anything look staged. Breakfast, compassion, a fight. She has a talent for arranging objects, until the room says what she wants it to say. With people, her results vary. She runs a small business making homes market-ready, which is a phrase that sometimes means person unready. I tried to like her on purpose. Some loves you have to cook. The trouble didn't arrive in a storm. It arrived like fog, anonymous, pervasive, telling you there is nothing to see while it moves the whole landscape an inch to the left. It started with rules. She called them boundaries because that word looks better in a caption. The open shelves should be curated, she would announce, which meant my mismatched mugs got sent to the garage like children who laughed too loudly. "Let's keep shoes by the door," she insisted, while rearranging the welcome mat so it would stop welcoming. Then came the private showings. I walked into my own living room one afternoon to find a couple I did not know appraising my books like produce. The realtor smiled at me with that customer service sweetness that cannot digest. "An elder? Isn't it charming?" she said, waving a hand at the dent in the sofa, where I keep my afternoons. "We're just getting a little feedback." "Who asked for it?" I asked, and my voice came out so calm, you could have poured tea on it. "Ethan." "And Madison," she said brightly. "They're really motivated." Motivated to do what? To remove the me from home until it became a set? Madison floated out of the hallway with a measuring tape around her neck like a cape. "It's not personal," she said. "It's market. We need to think ahead. You know, probate, logistics." "Probate is a word people use when they're trying not to say grief," I said. She didn't flinch, which is either strength or training. I am not a woman built for shouting. I respect paper. I respect recorders who stamp documents and clerks who keep red pens holy. Years ago, 15 to be exact, after Daniel's first scare with his heart, we walked into Ms. Duarte's office on the plaza. Her windowsill was full of succulents and mercy. She talked to us like we were not foolish for loving this house as if it were part of the family. "You want to avoid probate," she said, "and you want clarity. A Revocable Living Trust will let you move your home and certain accounts outside the will. While you're alive, you're the trustees. If one of you passes, the survivor stays in charge. When you both pass, your successor trustee follows your instructions." "Will it protect us from enthusiasm?" Daniel asked because he had met our grown child. "It will protect you from chaos," she said. "Chaos loves a will because wills need court. Trusts love clarity because clarity needs a single piece of paper, signed and behaving. We signed a declaration of trust and a grant deed, moving the house into the Camellia Trust, named for the bush that watches over us. We recorded it. The county stamped it. We bought a binder, black with silver rings, and labeled it like a promise. When Daniel died, the house did not tremble. The trust carried it like a careful waiter carries a bowl of soup across a room full of opinions. I became the sole trustee. I filed the affidavit of death of trustee because paper appreciates it when you tell the truth with the right form. None of this was news to Ethan. I had told him that if he behaved, there would be peace, and if he misbehaved, there would be paper. He kissed my cheek and told me I was dramatic. He has his father's smile, and my habit of underestimating other people's schedules. The day Madison told me to pack my things, I had just come in from hosing the walkway. A little river of water wandered down the driveway like an introvert, trying to join a parade. Madison stood at the bottom of the stairs with a contractor and a clipboard, pointing at the baseboards. "We'll touch up here," she said, "and stage the guest room as an office. Buyers love an office." "That's my room," I said. "It's not forever," she said cheerfully. The way weather is sometimes cheerful when it ruins a picnic. It's just until closing. "Closing requires consent," I said. "Ethan is next of kin," she said, in the tone of someone who prefers phrases to people. "It'll all come through probate anyway. We're just getting ahead." "Madison," I said, "probate will handle many things. It will not handle this house. Unless I say so." She laughed. "Flo, you're sweet." "I am," I said. "I am also trustee." She didn't ask what I meant because people who are sure of themselves rarely think they need new vocabulary. 2 days later, Ethan called to say we were going to the title company to sign preliminary stuff, words that cover a multitude of sins. I said, of course. My black binder was ready before my shoes. We entered a room painted the color of patience and sat across from a woman with the kind of posture you only get from correcting other people's mistakes kindly. Her name tag said Keisha. She greeted Ethan and Madison like regulars and me like weather. She opened a file, clicked her pen, and said, "We're just missing one thing, the trustee's consent." Madison frowned in a way that looked rehearsed. "We are the sellers," she said. Keisha slid a printout across the desk. It was the preliminary title report. Under vesting, it said, "Camellia Trust, dated, trustee, Florence Kim." Under requirements, it said, "Provide certification of trust and trustee consent." Madison blinked. "What is that?" "A certification of trust is a short document confirming the existence of the trust, the trustees, and their powers," Keisha said, as if she were explaining where forks go. "We don't need the whole trust. We just need proof that the trustee consents to the sale." "And if she doesn't?" Madison asked, turning her head toward me very slowly, as if the angle changed the law. "Then we don't close," Keisha said, and took a sip of water a little like a toast. I opened the black binder. The sound of rings releasing is more satisfying than it should be. I slid out a thin packet, clipped in the top corner. "Here is the certification of trust," I said. "It confirms that I am the trustee, and that while I remain so, no sale may occur without my written consent. I did not hand over any more than was necessary. Trusts appreciate modesty." Keisha scanned the page, nodded, made a copy, and returned the original like a clerk returning a passport at a border you are allowed to cross. Madison's face arranged itself into a shape that wanted to be called furious, but lacked the courage. Ethan put his hand on his knee and started tapping a rhythm I recognized from his childhood. I'm in trouble, but I may survive. So you're blocking this? Madison asked. I am managing it, I said. The house is not for sale. She laughed again, a fragile sound this time. You can't live here forever. You are correct, I said. But I can live here now. That is the only time that is currently my business. Keisha cleared her throat. She had the face of someone who had learned to be neutral without becoming furniture. We'll mark the file on hold pending trustee action, she said. Outside, the sunlight was bright in that honest California way. Madison turned on me like a woman negotiating with a mirror. You did this on purpose, she said. Not at first, I said. At first I did it because grief is expensive and paperwork cheaper. Later I did it because respect is priceless. Ethan exhaled. Mom, he said. We thought... I know, I said. Thinking ahead is a kindness when it includes the person you're thinking about. They left me at home with my binder and a silence that was not empty. I made barley tea and set it in the refrigerator the way you set hope in a cool place, so it keeps. I took the Camellia Trust back to its shelf and rested my hand on its spine. Thank you, I said to the camellias outside, and to the woman in the plaza who had suggested a path with fewer courts. Madison tried a fresh angle the next day. The will. Even if you slow this down, she wrote in a text message I could smell from across the room. The will is going to handle everything. It's inevitable. I made a pot of rice and thought about inevitability, which is a word that looks good in a book and bad in a kitchen. Then I called Ms. Duarte. I think there's confusion between wills and trusts, I said. She hummed. Her hum sounds like someone preparing a helpful chart. The will speaks to what's in probate, she said, gentle as if to a skittish horse. The trust controls what's titled to it. Your house isn't in your will's world, it's in your trust's. And if there's a will reading? I asked. There will be reading, she said, but the trust will remain itself. I laughed. Sometimes the best sentence is just true. There was, naturally, a will reading soon enough, but not mine. My neighbor, Mrs. Gonzalez, passed like a woman who had been practicing grace for decades. Her family gathered at the same office in town where our documents smell like ink and eucalyptus. Because I brought food to her house for years, her eldest son asked me to sit in the back. I watched the rhythm. Paper, names, tears. When it ended, a question floated out of the room like a lost balloon. And the house? The answer was in another binder. That family had no trust. The house would wait for a judge. Waiting is expensive. Madison, intoxicated by a false idea, scheduled a second open house. I took down the sign before the first car door shut. I stood in the driveway with a plate of cookies because you can correct someone's manners without bankrupting your own. Closed, I said. Trustee says closed. The realtor looked at Madison. Madison looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at me and then at the camellia bush and then at the sky. We need to talk, he said. We sat at the kitchen table that has listened to every version of us. Madison perched like someone who wanted to run a meeting on top of a volcano. Ethan folded his hands, which means he thinks he is being reasonable. Mom, he said, we can't keep living in this uncertainty. Then stop creating it, I said. Madison leaned forward. You're being unfair. Fair would be charging rent for attitude, I said. I am being polite. She swallowed. We need control. You may control your tone, I said. I will control the trust. Silence did some work. It usually will if you let it. Ethan rubbed his forehead like a boy trying to free a math answer from a sticky page. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want respect," I said, "and kindness to be the default, and no showings while I am alive. I want mail opened, bills paid, and dinners where the plates are allowed to show evidence of food," Madison stared. "There is a point in every argument where someone realizes they may have to become a person again." "And when you're gone?" she asked. "The trust speaks," I said. "It says what we said when Dan was alive. Ethan inherits the house only if he keeps the camellia table open." "What is that?" I smiled. "A long table in the yard on Thursdays. Soup, bread, chairs. Anyone who's hungry but shy. It's written," I added, tapping the binder, "in Schedule B, Condition of Distribution." Madison's mouth opened, closed, opened enough for a small laugh. "You put soup in a legal document." "Soup has always been a legal document," I said. "It binds people to better behavior." We adjourned. Madison needed to adjust to a planet where community outranks. Branding! Ethan needed a nap. I needed to clip a few camellias and put them in a jar where they could be admired without needing to perform. The next formal step was the one Madison thought would save her. A meeting at Keystone Title with a manager, and a conference room, and the sound of staplers behaving. The manager, a man with kind eyes and a suspicion of nonsense, opened the file and asked for updated trustee consent. I said no. He nodded. He explained that without it, the underwriter would not insure title. No title insurance, no sale. There are moments when justice is neither loud nor slow. It is efficient. Madison tried to work around me. She sent a manager's consent with Ethan's signature. The title office sent it back with a post-it, nearly blushing. "Need trustee," it said. There is mercy in an honest post-it. When the papers finally stopped pretending, there was a quiet. In that quiet, something unexpected moved. Apology. Not the grand kind with speeches and outcomes. The small kind with breakfast and less sighing. We began to relearn the house. Cal, my grandson, started doing homework at the real table instead of the staged one. Madison left a mug out by accident and did not apologize. Ethan fixed the latch on the gate because gates deserve closure. On one breezy Tuesday, Madison came in from the yard with wet knees and a face I had not seen. Human. "The camellias need mulch," she announced. "I made a list." She handed me a paper titled Camellia Plan. It had boxes to check. I checked them all. We still had to untangle the will from the myth. Madison dragged me to a cousin's will reading, thinking it would be a demonstration. It was. Ms. Duarte sat at the head of the table and read sentences that were less dramatic than the movies, and just as final. Madison waited for a moment where she could insert the phrase, "handle flow," into the proceedings. That moment never came. "Where a trust exists," Ms. Duarte said to someone else about something else, "probate does not reach." Madison stopped taking notes. Later, she would admit that she had confused TV with county. In spring, when the camellias finished, their polite burst of color and left us with leaves that meant work, I called a meeting. "Agenda," I said, because Madison respects agendas the way I respect recipes. 1. How we live here now. 2. What happens later. 3. Soup. We decided now would be kinder. No showings, no talking about me in the third person while I am in the first. Later, the trust would give Ethan the house if he kept the camellia table open for 2 years and did not remove the growth chart on the pantry door, which is more binding in this house than any lien. If he failed, the house would go to the Camellia Fund, a small community grant we would start by selling the old truck Dan never loved as much as he pretended. "Is this legal?" Ethan asked. "It is, loving," I said. "We'll let Ms. Duarte translate. We signed a trust amendment with language so tidy it could pass inspection." Madison brought a notary who smelled like vanilla and competence. We stamped, initialed, and hugged because paper should never be the only affection in the room. The first Camellia Table Thursday was quieter than a revolution, and just as useful. We set a long folding table under the bush that has seen all our weather. I made soybean paste stew and rice. Madison made a salad that used to be impossible in her hands, but somehow arrived like a compliment. Ethan carried water pitchers like a catechism. Neighbors came. The retired mailman who still walks like he has something to deliver. The nurse from up the street with a laugh that lifts. The kid who mows lawns too cheap for what his effort deserves. We ate from bowls that did not match and told stories that did. After dinner, Madison lingered. "I didn't know it could feel like this," she said. "It's messy." "So are camellias," I said. "They drop their beauty everywhere." She laughed, a real one, from the ribs. Not every day was kind. Some mornings she returned to speaking to me like a client with a budget. On those mornings I remembered that paper exists, so our worst selves don't have to run the whole show. I would touch the spine of the black binder the way Catholics touch a holy medal, and feel my breath come back from wherever it had hid. Ethan learned to say, "That's not our tone," and give her a tea she could hold instead of a plan she could wield. Cal learned to leave his backpack in a place that makes sense for humans, not photos. Once, out of nowhere, Madison asked, "What happens if you need care, and the house needs work and we can't keep up?" The question sat between us like a chair with no legs. "Then we look at the trust," I said. "It knows how to sell with my consent to solve a problem, not to prove a point." She nodded. That is what consent is for, the difference between necessary and convenient. I will tell you a secret about trusts. People assume they are tricks. For the rich, they are not. They are instructions for the ordinary, written in a language courts respect. They are how you tell your future a thing that your present might forget to say out loud while you are busy, washing dishes and surviving other people's improvements. They are how you name your soup in public. In June, a letter came from the title company, polite closing their file. The manager had written a note at the bottom. "If you ever choose to sell, we'll need your consent, Ms. Kim. Until then, enjoy the camellias." I put it in the binder because good manners belong in there too. We started hosting little workshops at the Camellia Table. Ms. Duarte came one Thursday and explained to 10 of us while we refilled bowls what a certification of trust is: short, simple, safe. And when to show exactly that and not the privacy of your whole life. She taught without scaring. Madison took notes without weaponizing. Ethan asked 2 questions without apologizing. It felt like a small local education reform. One evening, a woman I didn't know stopped at the fence and watched. She held a plastic grocery bag like it was too heavy for what it contained. "Is this allowed?" she asked. "Soup?" I said. "Always." "No," she said, gesturing at the house, the table, the people. "All of this while they're waiting for plans. We are living," I said. "Plans can wait in a folder." She smiled then, the kind of smile that makes a person look like themselves again. She left with 2 rolls wrapped in a napkin and the address of Ms. Duarte's office in her pocket. I imagine a binder will soon be purchased. You expect a big confrontation. Sometimes justice is not a performance. Sometimes it is a schedule. Thursdays at 6. Sometimes it is a grown son who began as a boy, who burrowed into my side when thunder came, looking at his wife and saying, "Let's ask my mom, not decide for my mom." Sometimes it is a woman who built a life from arrangements, learning to set a table instead. We have our skirmishes. Madison tries to return the living room to the version that photographs well, and I return it to the version that lives well. Ethan forgets to put the lid on the rice, and I pretend not to taste a little dryness. Cal still leaves socks in locations that imply he is mapping the house with cotton. The trust does not fix character. It cushions it, guides it, keeps our worst instincts from shoving. It allows for practice. On a soft evening in July, a breeze came through, and the camellias shook out a confetti they hadn't promised. We sat under it and felt festive for no reason that would make sense to an algorithm. Madison lifted her bowl and said, "To Flo, our trustee." Everyone laughed, then clinked spoons on ceramic, in a sound that has more joy in it than many weddings. I felt Daniel beside me, the way memory sits down without making the chair creak. If you want a moral, it's not a law you can quote on the internet. It's a practice. Write down your love in a way that county clerks and future children can read without translation. Title what matters to the container that will carry it when you can't. Put soup in your documents if you have to. Make community a clause. A reporter came once and asked, "Is the camellia table your revenge?" I told her revenge is a heavy spoon. It bends. Trust is a ladle that doesn't care who holds it, as long as it's going into bowls. She wrote a story anyway. It made the paper. We clipped it and stuck it on the fridge like a picture drawn by a child who got the colors nearly right. When I lock the front door at night, I press my palm to the wood and say thank you to the tree that became it, to the hands that hung it, to the paper that protects it, to the people it shelters. If anyone leans toward me again and says, "Pack your things, you're not on the deed," I will lean back and say, "The deed says Camellia Trust, and the trustee says the soup is hot. Will you stay for a bowl? Florence, Flo, Kim."